Hi and welcome back to Read No Grow. My name's Hayden and this week's book is The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. Now this is the first sort of spiritual book I've ever read. I'm not really a religious person, I'm definitely more on the spiritual side. I thought this book was pretty found in some bits. I can see why some people would maybe find it a bit woo-woo, but there were some bits that I thought were quite deep, and it kind of really taught me how to distance myself from thoughts, feelings and emotions, and just to be able to sort of step back a bit from them when they feel a little bit out of control. So let me know what you think, if you enjoyed this book, if you've read it, and we'll get stuck in. So this section's all about the incessant chatter and that constant monologue that we sometimes have. And Singer explains it's because we're too close to those thoughts and feelings. We almost need to step back and observe them objectively. So then he gives an example of putting objects in front of us like a book or a candle, and then asks which of these objects is you. And you would then say, well, I am not the object, I'm the person looking at the object. And he's trying to get you to think of your thoughts like this. You are not your thoughts. You are the person listening or hearing your thoughts or your feelings. You are not those thoughts or feelings or emotion. You're just the one observing them. So he's just trying to get you to appreciate that distance between your thoughts, feelings, emotions and yourself. And there's a quote that I like that is, "There is nothing more important than realizing you are not the voice of your mind, you are the one who hears it." And the next is, why is the voice talking? So Singer gives an example of a tea kettle whistling and how that buildup of energy can represent the voices in our head when we're nervous, anxious, excited, and they can become very active in those sort of states. But the flip side of this is not much might be happening, like a dog walks past and then you start commenting in your head like, oh, I used to have a dog like that, except mine was more of a brown dog. But your voice starts just to narrate things to try and make your world just seem a bit more safer and a bit more comfortable. And it's almost like it's a bit of a backseat driver in your head trying to make your surroundings a little bit more safer for you. So now that dog isn't any old dog, it's a dog that you've labelled, judged and observed. Another example of how our minds try to narrate things is, say you step outside and it's a bit chilly, your mind goes, it's cold, and it seems a bit of a waste of time because you already know it's cold. But then your mind will follow up with, maybe we should run inside and get a jumper, or maybe we should just walk a bit faster, the shop's only 5 minutes away. And our mind's just trying to sort of manage the situation we're in and trying to help us feel a little bit less exposed in the environment that we're in by constantly narrating things. It's trying to keep us safe, which is a bit of a colossal task to try and keep us safe all the time. So that's why it constantly narrates things for us. This section is Who Are You? And this is where things start to get a little bit deeper, and Singer starts asking, who are you? And I could be like, well, I'm Hayden Hamilton, I went to university in Glasgow. And then Singer's like, yeah, but those are just experiences and Hayden's just a name. Who are you? And he's trying to get you to think of who you are inside your body. Like, you could be like, I'm Hayden Hamilton, I'm 5'7", but he could argue that, but you weren't 5'7" when you were 5 and you were still in your body. Like, who are you? And he's trying to get you to think of what your consciousness is and trying to separate your thoughts and feelings and emotions from that consciousness. And he's trying to make you aware of that awareness and consciousness and trying to get you to think of it as watching everything, that you're the one who sees everything. You're the one who sees those thoughts, feelings and emotions. And I try to liken it as a scene from Bridgerton when the Queen sat upon her throne, she's on this platform, and she can see all the other people in the party, the court, dancing, joking, gossiping, but she's above all that. She's not going to drop down and mingle with everyone. She's just observing everything. And I sort of think of my sort of self as that. I'm the queen on the throne, just observing the thoughts, the feelings and emotions down in the court. But I'm not going to go down and get muddled up with all of them. I'm trying to keep my sort of self separated from them and trying to be that kind of object-subject relationship where I'm just observing all those thoughts, emotions and feelings and just watching them play out instead of getting caught in and drawn into them. Part 2, experiencing energy. This section was a little bit more spiritual. It talked more about chakras and energy, and Singer was sort of saying that how we talk a lot about how we can expend a lot of energy physically, but there is actually a lot of energy that we expend within ourselves. Like, say if we're obsessing over a decision, that creates a lot of energy inside and wastes a lot of energy. He also said that blocking energy, like if we're sad, kind of blocks the energy flow, or if we're happy, that opens the energy flow up again. And he talks about staying open and trying not to block that energy. and gives examples of, say, if you get sad news and you get like a tightness in your chest, if someone's been mean to you, or say you've had an argument with someone and you get that tightness, but then say that someone like apologizes to you and then that tightness sort of lifts and that energy sort of center is like opened again. He also talks about how like certain people are more prone to staying open and they seem to have like a higher vibe and a higher energy about them, and it's because they don't often like restrict that energy flow, that they just try and remain open all the time. And next is transcending the tendency to close. So again, it's sort of talking about those energies and trying not to close off the energies and keep your kind of energy open. And Singer goes on to say that because we don't need to worry about predators, and that because we've got most of our basic needs met, like food, shelter, clothing, that instead of focusing on those sort of things, we now focus on like internal struggles, like did I say the wrong thing, or did I speak too much at that party, or did I come across a bit aloof? And it's those sort of battles that we fight now, which are really like our own fears, doubts, insecurities are our main struggles now. And he gives an example of like a deer in danger, how it would either freeze or run for its life. But in our social setting, we can't just freeze or run. So we tend to put up a protective shield and we sort of withdraw from the situation. And that might come across as, if we withdraw, then we maybe constantly keep obsessing about it when we go home. Or instead of withdrawing, like the deer, it would run, maybe we would get more defensive about it. And that causes energy as well when you're trying to defend yourself all the time. And he says that to try and be aware of those emotions that come up. And if you notice that your jaw getting tight, your face getting hot, your heart starting to race, notice that energy change and try and let it go instead of obsessing over it, or instead of reacting to it. Just try and be bigger than it and just let it go and observe those feelings, but just step back from them. And he gives an example of, say, like you stub your toe with a hammer and all your energy and focus is on your toe and how painful it is, and you almost kind of forget about the rest of your body. You're just concentrating on the pain of the toe. And then he's sort of saying that, like, you know, if something happens, like an event or a situation like that, that kind of brings your energy up and that you feel like a little bit angry or something towards, then just try and sit back from it. Don't try and get all focused in and involved in that situation. See if you can step back and not let your emotions and thoughts take over in that situation. It's like that Queen example that I gave earlier. It's really tempting to go down to the court and get involved in all the drama, but if you can stay up on the seat of your awareness and don't get off the seat, stay on your seat and stay in control of the situation instead of getting involved in everything, then that can just make your energy a lot better and you will feel more in control of the situation. And I think this is something that a lot of us will struggle with. I know I definitely get defenses if I feel threatened or feel stupid, then I can feel my hackles getting up. But trying to just step back from the situation and not react instantly is something that I found is really helpful with meditation, and it just gives you that pause before you react, and it gives you that chance to not get up off your throne and not get up off your seat, but just to be like, I'm gonna sit out of this one and I'm just gonna watch and take a minute before I react. And I think meditation is really good for that, and I would recommend Cutting the Cord meditation by Sinead Hegarty. She's actually got like a Brave Way meditation course. I think it's like something like £45 and it's got like 23 meditations in there or something. But it's such a good investment if you're wanting to try and get better at controlling your emotions and getting that pause before you react to things. Next section is Taking Down the Walls, and this section is all about growth and trying to get out of your comfort zone. So you can almost think of comfort zones as like kind of barriers that are holding you back. And those barriers can represent fears and limiting beliefs that are keeping you confined in. And if you think about a tiger in a cage, the tiger knows its limits because it hits the bars of the cage. And we kind of know our limits when we start to feel a little bit uncomfortable, when our psyche sort of gets hit and we start to feel like we're kind of resisting and we want to pull back. That's the limits of our comfort zone. So Singer gives an example of a dog with an electric fence. And imagine the dog has been really used to roaming its garden for a really long time, and then the owners put up an electric fence. And then whenever it comes close to the electric fence, the dog starts to feel a little bit of discomfort and starts to back away. But then imagine a braver dog, a more curious dog, starts to get to the electric fence and experiences that discomfort, but instead of pulling away, it just relaxes and pushes closer and closer to the fence and gets used to that discomfort, and eventually it can break free of that barrier and then roam on. When we get close to our edges, that's when we feel discomfort, and that's us getting to the edges of our comfort zone. And that's usually when our fear, doubt, and insecurities creep in. But instead of pulling back when we experience those emotions and we get to the edges of our comfort zone, if we leaned in, then that could be an opportunity for growth. And Singer says if we started to lean into the fear instead of pulling back, then that's when real growth occurs. And Singer makes a point that those comfort zones, those walls and boundaries, those are things that we've created. So we actually have the opportunity to break those down as well. And that wraps up this week's video, so thank you so much for watching. And as usual, if you comment below, I'll send someone a copy of this week's book. And I'm going to review this book and I'm going to give it between 3 and 3.5 stars because there were some really good points to it. Like I said, some bits were quite profound and quite deep, and it really did help me with my incessant chatter and help me kind of be able to distance my thoughts and to create that kind of pause before I react. Like I do think I now take a wee moment before I get a bit more defensive to things, and I can just assess the situation a little bit better. And it also made me think about my comfort zones a bit differently. So instead of saying no or pull back when I start to feel a little bit insecure or fearful about saying yes to something new, I actually start to lean into it a bit more and say yes instead of no and see where that takes me, because it's maybe a new opportunity for growth. And it's also helped me let go of things a little bit more. So I think before I would maybe hang on to things, whereas I do try and like keep myself open, a little bit more receptive to things, and try not to hold on to things inside and let them fester as much as I used to. However, there were some parts that I found a little bit repetitive, and the way the book's written, I do feel like it's almost like a stream of consciousness, like it kind of like runs in together a wee bit. So I would have quite liked it if there was maybe more sort of definite chapters and sections, and maybe if there was a few more like action steps. So it does talk about meditation and yoga, but maybe if it actually linked to a certain meditation or yoga, if it like there was a certain sort of meditation course that they recommended or something like that. That's why I recommended Sinead Hegarty's meditation course, because I thought that was really useful. And also I felt like the section on letting go was good, but I feel like also you can't let go of everything, because we need people who are passionate and angry about things to affect change. If everyone just like let everything go, then nothing would be any different. There wouldn't be any new things happening, there wouldn't be changes. So I feel like it's nice to let go, but if everyone was a bit like, hey, it's okay, then nothing would get done. So yeah, let me know if you've read the book and what your thoughts were, and I'd love to know, so leave a comment below, and take care guys, bye! So but Singer's trying, Jesus, with a top and t-shirt on, and how,